We have an incredible treat today, this afternoon. We have the Congresswoman from the 1st District, right? Yes. Congressman Lujan Grisham. Congresswoman, I should say. And I'm not going to do the introducing, but I'm going to just tell you guys that I'm really excited that you sent this progressive, forward-thinking member to Congress, because we need people like her. And I'm really pleased to know that you're on the House Agriculture Committee and the Government Ops Committee and the I guess it's the Budget Committee, the House Budget. So she's a powerful woman, and I guess that comes with a lot of background we're going to hear about right now. But as all politicians will tell you, things don't just happen by themselves. When you want things done, you, the constituents, have to make them happen. And so it was, who was it? President Roosevelt that said to the AFL-CIO when they came in after his election, I'm not just going to do everything you want me to do. You have to make me do it. So obviously there's a relationship here that is long and deep with the community, and we're so pleased to have you here with us. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Robin, because she's going to tell us give us a warm. You're not going to say anything? Come on.
Well, too late. I'm here. I want to thank our Congresswoman for coming. She's a real woman. We are so lucky to have this woman in Washington fighting for us, working for us. She just said to me, I work for you. And I was like, wow. And we want to work with you. She's a real woman that we can really work with on a lot of issues. She convened, I believe, the Precautionary Principle Task Force. And those of you who know about the Precautionary Principle, that's what this woman already did for us. It's a really big deal. I also just want to quickly thank Lee Flock from the university for all the work, and our catering staff, especially Chef Sean. So was lunch pretty tasty? Yes. Organic ingredients. Thank you to Chef Sean. I hope he hears this. And wherever you want to be.
That's my favorite kind of introduction. Not all that weird biography stuff. All right, so I'm not very tall. I have a 6-inch heel, and I am not very tall. So is it better if I can come here? Okay, done. All right. And I have to ask your indulgence, if that's all right. I will turn my back to you. I hope not too often. I'm not feeling good. So I've been puny for several weeks, and I finally broke down yesterday and went to the doctor, and I'm on antibiotics, so I apologize if I have to have a drink of tea, or I'm bacteria. So unless somebody gets whatever I'm going to say next is not going to be right. So I'm going to stop it right there, because I'm going to get into trouble. But suffice it to say, I am not contagious. So that's the good news. And I'm really delighted that I got invited here, and I want to do 3 things. I know that you've got incredible speakers, and I don't want to belabor or delay that, because the work that you do today clearly makes a difference in creating knowledgeable advocates who will make a difference in the way we create policy, which I hope, and you hope too, ends up in much better food safety and nutrition and public health, which is really the ultimate goal here, and I appreciate your efforts to do that. The second thing I want to do is talk a little bit about what I'm doing in Congress and how all this work is going to connect, I hope. And then quickly, the third thing is just remind you that the public health aspects, that marrying environmental issues and public health, there's so much more exciting work that we can do. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I was really excited that folks like you came to me when I was the Secretary of Health in the Richardson administration and said, we're doing our work in a separate fashion. And we're doing traditional public health over here, and I'm going to minimize that effort for a moment. And we're really clear about flu. All right? And we're doing all of our environmental work over here, and we're not talking about them together. And let me give you then the example that I was introduced with. I'd love to take credit for the precautionary principle. That's work done right here at the University of New Mexico. And then I was asked to put those policies in place in the Department of Health so that every decision that we made, we weren't trying to do causation, right? We weren't having to do all the epidemiological research and spend all of that money and then make a case to policymakers or get the money to take what we believe to be the case, to finish out that research and then to do the test subjects and then to bring it back here. And by the time you do all that, people are harmed or harm is done and there's nothing we can do about it except for to clean that up and start again. So we just married that from work that was here, and the most notable example is removal of thimerosal in the flu vaccine. Now, I don't know how many of you remember that when I was at Public Health, but this was not an easy situation. So I'm a naive policymaker. I think that's the best kind because you're a bit fearless. And I'm sitting in my office, and some public health folks and environmental folks come to me and say, you know, we're still purchasing flu vaccine for both kids and adults with thimerosal in it, which, as many of you or most of you know, is a neurotoxin, so it's mercury, and they use it as a preservative because it's the cheapest substance to do the preservation work in a flu vaccine, and because flu vaccines are difficult to manufacture because you got to go through each strain, and they can be expensive, and we don't have enough flu manufacturers in the world as a result because they don't make enough money because they got to change it up all the time. You know, people are very nervous about shaking up the system. And everybody came to me and said, they make it without thimerosal. So why would the state of New Mexico buy it with a neurotoxin in it? Well, this makes good sense to me. Why would we buy it if it's got a neurotoxin? I don't want it. So we go to the legislature and we introduce legislation that says just this. It will now be the policy, because here's the other thing about being a policymaker. You know, I'm convinced, but I want everybody who comes after me convinced. So you want that purchasing power in state law. Otherwise, it can switch all the time. All right, so we introduce a bill. It says it will be the policy of the Department of Health to only purchase flu vaccines without thimerosal. And the real focus here is on thimerosal-free vaccines for children. Now, does that seem like a simple proposal to you? Yeah, I about got run out of town. You have no idea. So let's talk about the parties who were upset about this. Number one, doctors. I am now interfering in the practice of medicine because what I am proposing is tantamount to an all-out ban. And if a hospital has doses of that vaccine and you've got an immune-deficient infant needs that flu vaccine while in the hospital or going home, how dare I tell you you can't provide whatever vaccine you have available to you? Now, I believe I just said the Department of Health will not purchase any vaccines with a neurotoxin in it. I never said that University of New Mexico couldn't buy them or prescribe them. Doctors went nuts. And in fact, on TV, I think Barry Ramo said the most nasty things about how I had no idea what I was doing and that I was not a doctor, I should not be practicing medicine, and I had no right to think about these kinds of policies. Okay? Oh, harsh. Two, who else got upset? All the advocates for children. Now think about that. Oh, wait. Should they be on my side? Nope. You know why? Because it created an environment where people would be afraid of vaccines. Right? We already have a problem getting children immunized because we've got lots of concerns, and I think there's been more of a kind of a public response about maybe the autism issue is connected to vaccines. Of course, I would say then if there's any causation here, take out the mercury. That seems to me that could be the exacerbating factor here. But I'm not saying, this is precautionary principle stuff, I'm not saying it causes autism or anything else. I'm not even saying it's unsafe. I'm just saying if you don't need more neurotoxins in this vaccine, why would you do it? As a parent and a public health officer, I want less neurotoxins in the things that we inject and and take in, not more. All right? So imagine, and there were more. There were more people against that legislation. Did we win it? Yes, we did. We won it. And today, everybody has as their purchasing practice thimerosal-free vaccine. And in New Mexico, it's very hard to get a flu vaccine with any neurotoxins in it because everybody followed suit. We didn't have any issues. We didn't have a reduction in vaccine security for folks. We still have to work on that. But we didn't have to create an environment that before we could remove that purchase power, get rid of the neurotoxin, I didn't have to prove that it was causing a problem for you. We just did the best practice. And if we're going to get at real food safety, which you're doing today, we have to decide that precautionary principles are the things that we should take into account for policy making. If we don't need pesticides, and we don't need more toxins, and we don't need poisons, we should be working to get rid of those. We don't have to prove that they're causing things or not. We just know that better public health outcomes occur when we have less of those substances in the environment. So we don't have to prove the direct causation. Unfortunately, policymakers do it backwards. We wait until there's real harm. All right? We don't prevent it. And all the work we're doing today in prevention, this makes great sense to me, and I know it makes great sense to you. So second thing I want to talk about, and I'll hurry up because I know you've got much better substantive speakers today than me, but I was just so excited to get to say hello today and so honored that you would ask me. But I really wanted to be on the Ag Committee, and I've gotten to tell this story several times. I love telling it because I've only been in Congress a whopping 3 months, and thank you very much because I love it very much. And I have real optimism that things can change for the better, even in Washington, D.C. I do. And so I wanted to be on the Ag Committee. Everybody that helped on my campaign and lots of supporters emailed me and said, shoot, the Ag Committee. Well, darn it. That's okay. You'll do better next time you ask for a committee. And I thought, what? No, I had to fight for that committee. It was, there was arm wrestling and strategic stuff going on. I really wanted this committee assignment. Well, why? Besides the water and the economic development and the alternative energy investments and housing, it's a very diverse committee that does both appropriations and policy work. One of the only committees that does both. And as a freshman, I want to do both because I know both are meaningful, particularly in New Mexico. But it does food safety. It does public health. It does school nutrition. It creates those standards. It's working to get better food and better produce, not only to individuals, but into the school system, into the SNAP program. Now this, for a state that has some of the highest hunger, highest poverty, highest food insecurity issues in the country, this seems to me where we need a champion for New Mexico. So I'm going to tell you what, I'm excited about that committee. And we're going to get your work. And so I need you. So that's the third thing. Thank you. What you do today, we need to build more of a presence from our small state about the things that really matter. And we should lead the country in precautionary principle work and sound public health and sound public policy. And we should move Congress and the federal government to work with states to set the highest possible standards. Because if that's not our goal, if we don't aim high, well, then we're never going to get there. And so I'm really excited. I'm going to tell you that right now in May, we're going to mark up the Farm Bill. I'm really excited about that. And there are places in that Farm Bill to start to place policies that will make a difference for the work that we do today and tomorrow. So your ideas, now I have to do that thing because my nose is running. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. We have to do it quick. So I need you to be experts by, what time does the conference end? Tonight. Okay, by tonight everyone's an expert. So whatever comes out of this conference and the work that you do later, that work needs to get to my office. And I'm going to introduce someone that's fantastic. There she is over there, Mariana Padilla. Now, Mariana works in my state office. She's an incredible asset. She's got great expertise in ag and the Farm Bill. And she's with, Mariana, are you here all day? Most of the day. Mariana also has a family, so we got to get her out of here. She can't be here all day because they already work 7 days a week. And if you knew what we pay people in these congressional offices, you would be mad. All right, you ready? An entry-level salary in a congressional office is $25,000. And that's for kids who live in D.C. And the cost of living in D.C. for $25,000, you cannot get an apartment. So young people, and I'm being disrespectful to Mariana, who I'm calling a kid. She's got a master's degree. She's incredible. I mean, I wish I'd gone into state government with a background like Mariana's. You know, you guys had to be patient with me. It took me 17 years to learn it. She came fully loaded, which is fantastic. But these are people who dedicate their lives to this public work, and nobody understands that. And so I've decided to be a champion of these folks. And the young people who come to D.C., it's their parents and their friends who support them to do this work because they can't. And the other thing, I was on KUNM and they were talking about, everybody's mad at Congress because we don't work. We don't work enough on the floor. We don't get enough legislation to debate on the floor. This is true. We don't get enough out of the committees so that we're having earnest conversations about the steps to take to improve a variety of issues in this country. All true. But the notion that we're really on recess, because I don't know about you, but I think of recess where I'm literally on a teeter-totter, which I like those, or I'm on vacation. We are not. We're back in the district or we at work. This is the most brutal schedule ever, which I think also doesn't lend itself to focusing often on the things that really make a difference. So I do apologize for Congress in that regard, and I do commit to you that I'm working really hard to make sure that the economy here gets improved, that we have the best public health policies in the country, and I promise not to forget that indeed I work for each and every one of you. Thank you so much for having me. Absolutely.
Thank you. The Congresswoman is willing to take a couple questions. We do need to move through the program, of course. I want to just intervene here, ask you the first question. Would you be willing to join the Organic Coalition?
Why not?
Oh, why not? So great. Perfect. So we'll hook you up with that, okay? Any questions? Okay.
Take the thimerosal out of the other vaccines like hepatitis, pneumococcus, etc.?
I think for all the vaccines that we purchased, this is what I believe happened. After we got the bill passed, and then everybody was stuck with us making that decision, the New Mexico Medical Society, who opposed us, joined forces with the Department of Health to create a new clinical practice to take out as many inappropriate preservatives and substances out of all vaccines. And Mariano, can we get on our website just exactly what that clinical protocol does now? Just remind me to call Randy Marshall. So when you get on our website, give us a week, you can see just how many vaccines they got preservatives out of. And that's how we handled it. And I wish I could answer it completely without doing a little research, but I can't. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, is your hand up? Okay.
President Obama recently signed a budget that included a rider known as the Monsanto Protection Act. What are the implications of that for New Mexico in terms of potential crops that might be grown here that may not have judicial authorization? And what can be done to reverse that?
So I'm going to do two things with that question. Did everybody hear the question about the president's budget has basically protections for, and I would argue even enhancements for genetic engineering of food? Now, so let's take the president's position, which he hasn't called me to ask my opinion about this. So to some degree, this is an assumption. But in this economy, and trying to find ways to expand the amount of food that we're providing and to make it more cost effective, make sure that we can all afford it, I am sure there is an economic engine effort here that folks in the White House believe is meaningful. I haven't seen the details of that request. The other side of the coin is this is the problem that we fight in oil and gas and alternative energy. we put all these investments in poison fuel supply. We don't do any investments in the alternative energy aspect, so they're always more expensive. They limp along, and you never get it done. And so the argument is always, if we're going to have cheap power, we have to keep doing the same thing. Well, we're going in the same direction now with food. So we're not going to invest in organic, whole food, clean, safe food for the future. We're going to decide that genetic engineering is fine and try to expand our access in that way. And I'm concerned about that. So the good news again is that they're going to have to explain that to me on the Ag Committee. And the other thing I will tell you, just can I do pure politics, which is a bit inappropriate? Yes? You can tolerate this? The president's budget, I don't think goes very far. So we're going to have a real healthy debate about not only the genetic engineering, but a whole lot of other stuff. We ought to get a budget out of the House in 2013, but I don't think it's going to happen. So the president's budget would be amended and modified in the Senate, and it will wholesale be defeated by the Tea Party and other Republicans in the House. So if you're worried about that, don't worry too much about it, except we're beginning to see some powerful requests about it. And that's why I need your help to provide the right protections in the Ag Committee. And I'm also on the Budget Committee, and in the Budget Committee as well. Thank you. How about one more over there? Do I have time for one more? Sorry. I hope so. I know there's some folks working on doing genetic engineering. My preference is that it stays exactly the way it is. I think that that's what provides that protection. And while our chilies are grown, now we know, all over the world, they don't look the same, they don't taste the same, and the value of having it grown here is terrific. And we have to protect that just the way it is. So I hope I have your help to do that too. All right, again, learn everything by 5 o'clock.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the